What's going on, guys? I'm Josh Benitez and this is Texan Woodworks. Welcome to the shop tour. Let's get right into it. As with all of my videos, I will make sure to leave links with descriptions of all the tools that I use, all the plans that I bought from other makers, and everything in here that I have purchased. I'll make sure to leave links right down in the description below. So if you do have any questions, feel free to click those links. I will have labeled the ones that are affiliate links, and that doesn't cost you a dime. All that it does is give a little bit of kickback to me, helps the channel, helps to support my hobby, my craft, my business, and something that I'm able to continue to put out good content for you guys. So if you like what I do and you want to purchase any of these tools, make sure to use that link down below. It would really help me out. So as soon as you walk into the shop, directly to the left is going to be my very first table. Now, this is one of the ones made by Husky that has this little crank right here that raises and lowers the table. And I really like that depending on the size of the piece that I'm working with it. It really helps, especially with sanding, with putting out certain joinery, with stain, anything like that. And the great thing is if I want to do nice, let's say like Dremel work or anything hand carved, I can pull up a stool, adjust it to my height, and actually use it right there. So it's super handy. And right next to that we have my big bandsaw, Laguna 14BX. I'm absolutely loving this thing. So this is my Laguna 14BX bandsaw. I absolutely love this thing. It has the big 3/4 inch Resaw King blade. It's the biggest blade that will actually fit on this. And I absolutely love it. I've used it to just resaw several pieces all the way down to, I believe it was about a 64th of an inch, which was paper thin. It was pretty awesome. This thing is a beast. I love the mobile base on it because I can roll it in and out wherever I need it. And when I don't want it or when it's in the way, I can move it wherever I need to. But when I do, I can bring it out to whatever fits the workpiece at the time. And this is the 2¼ horsepower, 240 volt model. I was going back and forth trying to decide which one I wanted, and I elected to go for the 240 volt model, mainly because the dust collector that I also bought at the same time, that we'll talk about in a little bit, is also on 240. And so it made sense to get both of these. And this was a bandsaw that I wanted to buy one time and never have to worry about it. And for the same exact price, it made sense for me to get the bigger model. So I absolutely love it. Phenomenal bandsaw. Coming right off the bandsaw, I have my tracks. Both of these are, I believe, 55-inch tracks for the Wind track saw. I do like those. I think they're great for breaking down sheet goods or just getting kind of a straight line rip. I use them oftentimes with my big oversized end grain cutting boards because it's really hard to get a square surface or get a square edge, and that allows me to do that and then reference that on the table saw, and it comes out great every time. So those tracks are awesome. I used to play darts. I'm not nearly as active as I once was. And that was also something that I was talking to my wife about the other day that I want to implement into the new shop. And there are two main reasons that I don't play in my garage anymore. Number one, what's called a throw line, which is basically where you're supposed to stand. It's a regulated distance from where you throw, is directly underneath one of my tools. The other thing is, as many of you have known, as I said in the past, my son's room is right here behind it. So every dart that hits the board, whether it hits the board, hits the wall, whatever, is making sound in his room. And so that's something that I try to avoid at all costs. And so unfortunately this board is rendered somewhat useless here, but in the new shop I will make sure it has a dedicated spot. Coming directly off of that onto the wall, I have my little mini woodpecker setup. That's definitely something I plan to grow in the future, but these tools are phenomenal. I have the 642 SS and the 1282 SS. I got this kit and I absolutely love it. I use them all the time. I am constantly looking for reasons just to use them because they're such finely tuned tools. Anybody that has woodpeckers can tell you the exact same thing. Very precise, a joy to use. The same thing with the Pocket Pellini set. I use these all the time. I think between the 1282 and the 6-inch Pocket Pellini, those are definitely my two most used woodpeckers tools. So absolutely love those. Directly above it, I have my Incremiter gauge. It is the Incremiter 1000 SE. and I built it on little walnut scraps to hold that up off the wall. It was a little pricey, but I absolutely love it, and I did not at the time have time to make a crosscut sled, make sure it was perfectly square, add all these different features, and I found that one. Woodcraft had it in stock, so I said, screw it, I'm just gonna go get it, and I absolutely love it. I use it all the time. It has a lot of features, it's very compact, it's very well built, and that being said, that's why I wanted to hang it up on the wall, so that it did have a dedicated space, and I wasn't having to worry about scratching it or dropping it or anything like that. So, love that. Directly underneath, we have my son's workbench for my oldest son. He's almost 7. We built that, I believe, last summer, and it's pretty cool. We found this marker. It's a, I forget the name of it. I'll definitely make sure to leave a link in the description, but it's a marker where you can draw on something, mainly wood, and when you add a heat gun to it, it actually gets darker and leaves the rest of it alone. So it's really, really cool. We signed it with the date on the back, so that was a really neat project. And he woke up one morning on the weekend and said, hey, Dad, I want to build myself a workbench. And so we came out here and built him a workbench. And that was kind of one of the things that started a lot of other shop furniture builds. So really, really cool to have him out in the shop when he is with me. And it's a lot of fun to have him. And then I got my dust stopper, which was a mini cycle that I got from Home Depot, attached to a shop vac. I like this. I still would use it if it had a bigger capacity. That's really the only reason that I don't use it, is it's only about 5 gallons. And any of you that have a big planer or jointer knows that you go through that in about 2 or 3 boards. So that was just annoying having to change it out. So I got the larger one from Rockler that we'll talk about later. Next to that is going to be my Snap-on toolbox. This is a toolbox that has quite a bit of sentimental value for me. When I was growing up, pretty much my entire childhood, as far back as I can remember, my dad has been a mechanic, and this was kind of his pride and joy toolbox. It's got tons and tons and tons of storage, and it's got everything from the small things like Sharpies and, you know, pencils, extra tape measures, my cutting board feet, all the way to big things like my finish sprayer and all my hardware, all my drill bits, all my sanders, all my abrasive paper, wrenches, everything that's in here. Everything that's not a major full-size power tool is in here. Even all my little, you know, small stuff like bolts and drawer pulls and that kind of stuff. I absolutely love this thing, and my shop would be a complete disaster if I did not have this. So really, really awesome. Speaking of total disaster, right above it is all my charging cables that I had bought the plans from John Malecki to build a drill charging station that was going to house all of my chargers, all of my drills, and kind of clean this all up, and it was going to go right here. I got so busy with other client builds that it kind of got pushed and pushed and pushed, and by the time I had time for it, didn't really make a whole lot of sense for me to build it. So that'll be one of the first projects of the new house as well for the shop. So really excited about that. Speaking of the drills, this is the lineup that I've got. This is my Black & Decker. I think I paid like 40 bucks for this at Lowe's. This is when I very, very first started. Actually, before I started, I needed to hang a couple picture frames in the house, and I had 0 tools. I didn't have wrenches, screwdrivers, anything, and that was the first tool I bought. And it's hung with me so far. I don't use it very often, but when I use it, it's there, so that's nice. Then after that one, I went with the Ryobi set. I bought their 18 volt. It's not the brushless one, but it's the 18 volt 1 Plus, the drill and impact driver kit. And I used that one for a little while, and it did really, really well. I found myself, number one, at times it didn't have quite enough power, and number two, I found myself constantly looking for a second or third drill to be able to not have to change out bits in certain tasks. And so I ended up upgrading, and at least what I consider an upgrade. And then I went with the rigid brushless set. And I also got the hammer drill and the impact driver set. And that one came with 2 of the 4 amp hour batteries, and I absolutely love it. It's got tons of power. It is a little bit on the big and bulky side, but when you need the power, it is absolutely there time and time again. So love that set. From there, I realized sometimes it is a little big and bulky and sometimes it's a little heavy, so I downgraded and got the rigid 12 volt. Well, then I wanted a smaller impact driver, so then I bought the Bosch set, the 12 volt drill and impact driver. And then I was like, well, there are certain times I need, you know, a right angle attachment or a offset chuck or whatever. So then I bought the Bosch 12 volt flexi click, and I love that one too. So For those of you wondering why I have this obsession with drills, a lot of it kind of came from necessity, and as a matter of fact, the subcompact series from Rigid that I also have actually won in a giveaway. So I did not buy that one, although I will say it is probably one of my most used drill driver sets in here now, because it offers about 75–80% of the power that the big ones do, but at a significantly smaller footprint, as well as much lighter. So a joy to use when you really need that power, but not so heavy and bulky. It's a lot easier on my wrist, so love that set. Coming directly off of the big Snap-on toolbox is my outfeed/assembly table. I use this for absolutely everything. This was the very first one that I ever built, and I love it. The only thing is, two things. Number one, I wish I would have put finish on the top instead of just leaving it raw plywood, because the first time I did a glue up on this thing, it destroyed the top, it destroyed its integrity, and it got completely rid of any ability to stay perfectly flat for glue ups going forward. So that's one thing I wish I would have done differently. The other thing is it's not really big enough. I find myself constantly having to use it with my table saw, or assemble things on the ground, and that's just really frustrating. That kind of negates the whole reason for building a table like this. Now, I do really like it. This one was plans from Brad Rodriguez from Fix This Build That. Super easy, super simple. I think I built it in a day. So it's a very easy build. I ended up using some leftover red oak that I had for edge banding, and it came out great. Underneath, it's just got one shelf that I store small things like tape and clamps, just stuff that I don't quite have a home for yet. And so, love this thing, and it does me great. I will absolutely keep it, but I'm definitely going to be building a bigger one in the future. Now, remember I said that was my outfeed table. Well, it's got outfeed from something, so here goes my workhorse, my absolute center of the shop. This is my Delta 1¼ horsepower, 52-inch rip capacity with the additional cast iron wings table saw. A few upgrades that I've made. Number one, I got the Jessim table saw stock guides and the Jessim router lift, and I absolutely love both of them. Everything that I own from Jessim has been phenomenal quality, great precision, great accuracy. I absolutely love their tools. This one was super easy to install. I think it took me 25–30 minutes. It was really easy. As a matter of fact, if you're looking for these, I do actually have a video of the install on my YouTube channel, so make sure to check that in the card right above. Also, the router lift, all that I did, because this is just a particle board top with a kind of really thin, like melamine type veneer. I just made a jig with some plywood, took some measurements off of this, figured out where I wanted it, and used a router and just dug out, hugged out whatever I needed, and then used the jigsaw to get rid of the big hole, flush set it in there, bolted it in with some threaded inserts, and it works great. I even have the additional switch down here from Woodcraft that I got for the router table, and I love it. So this is a great setup. Unfortunately, they did discontinue this. I've had a lot of people asking about this table saw. I don't know where to find it. You may be able to find it used somewhere, but I actually got it at a steal. I think I got it for like $500 off. I had to order it from Home Depot, but I got it about $500 off because they were getting ready to discontinue it, and they're getting rid of their stock. So I think it was like a $1,600, $1,400 saw, something like that. I got right at around $1,000. So it was a great steal for me. And at the time, I had the $179 Ryobi job site saw. So this was a phenomenal upgrade as far as capacity, accuracy, power, the ability to have cast iron instead of aluminum, a much more rigid fence. So yeah, all that. I absolutely love this saw. Eventually, I will upgrade to a saw stock, but there's nothing that this thing can't do just yet. Now, with some thicker hardwoods, sometimes you have to go a little slower, but with the right blade, making sure everything's tuned up the right way, it's a beast. It'll power through just about anything. So, love this saw, and it's at the heart of my shop for a reason. I use it all the time. Now, the biggest thing for table saws is going to be dust collection. It does have a 2.5-inch port on the back, and so what I use is the Rigid, I believe this is a 16 gallon. I got this on Black Friday for like 60% off. So I was gonna get a similar one, but I think it was like the 10 gallon or 8 gallon or whatever. And I'm so glad I did upgraded because this thing is a beast. Now this was the Rockler Dust Right separator that I was referring to earlier. And this thing, I want to say it's a 20 or 25 gallon. I love it. It separates the dust phenomenally. It doesn't fill up super quick, and so I love that part about it, and it does a great job for me. So what I do is I just wheel these around whenever I need to use like a sander or a jigsaw belt sander or anything like that that I have to attach a hose to, and it works great. And then also you can see the router switch that I had installed over here for my actual router table insert. Now right off the edge of the table saw is my miter saw station. This was by far the biggest shop build that I've made, and it is a absolute juggernaut of my shop. It holds this massive 12-inch double bevel compound miter saw from Bosch that I absolutely love. It's got the axial glide bearings in the back, so it doesn't protrude out the back at all. Love that saw. It also has an integrated T-track with a stop block, as well as tape measure. These are the ones from Rocco, the really thin steel ones that you can inset. So it's got that in it. It holds my tapering jig, a juice screw jig for my larger boards. This is my tenon jig, my spline jig. I've also got my smaller juice screw jig back here. And then down here I've got a straight line rip jig for larger pieces. So it holds all my jigs. It is fenceless, mainly because I only reference the miter saw fence. But yeah, absolutely love this thing. It's got my red oak zero clearance insert, and that thing has proved well. All of these top containers here are plywood scraps and offcuts, with the exception of this one here, a couple of hardwood pieces, and then everything from here down is all hardwood. And I've got them organized by the size and things like that. All down here, I've got all my tools. I've got my big router. I've got a couple of my smaller routers underneath there. The wind track saw that I referred to earlier is down here. I've got my biscuit joiner, my Dremel multi-tool, my brand new domino that I haven't even been able to use yet, but that sweet baby sitting right here. And then a couple miscellaneous like a recip saw and some extra tool bags are down there. Right underneath here, those of us that have young kids, gotta keep everything unplugged. Underneath the miter saw, I've got a bin full of offcuts. I've got some PVC. I've got some thin walnut strips, plywood, all kinds of stuff down here. So that really comes in handy whenever I'm needing just kind of a smaller piece. And then one of my favorite features of this station, as small and simple and cheap as it was this little miter saw, this little tape measure hook. It's made by a company called Woodworking. And that guy has some really, really cool inventions. Some great stuff, everything for carpenters, mechanics, plumbers, all kinds of really cool stuff. So absolutely love that thing. I never have to worry where my tape measure is. And that being one of the more expensive tape measures, I definitely have a hard time not knowing where it's at. So it's nice knowing that it's always secure right there. This miter station was built out of 12 sheets of plywood, all 3/4 inch. And it was a beast, and it took me about a week, maybe a week and a half to put together, but man, it is so worth it. I had also from Brad Rodriguez, the Fix This Build That mobile miter station, and it worked great for me for about a year. I just found myself oftentimes getting some larger rough cut lumber, and it just simply couldn't hold up. So that being said, I wanted to make a larger one, and I absolutely love this one. I got the main plans from the Evening Woodworker, and I mainly used, I liked the rough outline of his. I wanted to change just a little bit to fit my situation, and so I modified it and sketched it quite a bit. But yeah, the main reason being is I wanted it a lot longer on one side. I wanted more capacity. The other thing is I had a much bigger miter saw, and so I needed to adjust the dimensions for that. I also did not want drawers at all. I wanted all open cubbies for offcuts and tool storage, and so I adjusted that. As well as his was on a self-leveling 2x4 base. I wanted casters, and check this out. This is my favorite part of the whole thing. This is why I wanted it on casters. So when I need to get into my large sheet goods storage, this entire thing slides out. Come check this out. I built an entire plywood storage cart right here, and it is directly attached to the miter station. And so it swings out. So I've got a sheet of 3/4 inch Baltic birch there. I've got large 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch offcuts handful of 3/4 inch offcuts, some poly, or some, what do you call this stuff? Acrylic down here. And then I have my purple sheet for breaking down any of my sheet goods, and tons of plywood offcuts back there. So yeah, I really love this stand for so many reasons: the repeatability, the weight bearing, the ability to move it around, the versatility to hold my jigs, the no fence system, the offcut bins, tool storage, everything. I love this thing. As an absolute beast. Right above it, you'll see I've got my Bora lumber rack. This is where my rough cut lumber is, and so I come in straight from the lumber yard, back up my truck, open up the garage door, and it goes right in here. And my order of operations is directly down to the miter saw, and then joint, plane, table saw, and then we just go from there. And so it makes it really easy to get it down from there and bring it right down here. And yeah, that thing supports a ton of weight. I pretty much always have at least walnut, cherry, and some hard maple in stock. Just kind of depends on what offcuts I've got and also what kind of deals I find. So I definitely love having those racks in. As we move a little further down, you'll see I've got my flip top stand that I actually just finished building. Another Brad Rodriguez from Fix This Build That plan. Love the plan, love the station. Built this out of 3/4 inch Baltic birch, as well as the poplar inserts for underneath the base. I've got my rigid spindle sander here and my DeWalt 735 planer, and it's got a drawer underneath for like all the little inserts here, the screws, as well as the blade change magnet for the DeWalt planer. So love this guy. It wheels in and out whenever I need it. Right behind it, we've got the P-Flux 1 with HEPA filter from Laguna. This is an absolute beast. It looks like it belongs in Batman's lair. It is so sexy. It is so fun to use. It sounds like a jet turbine every time you put it on, and it is incredibly powerful. So I love this beast. Currently, you'll notice I just have flex hose. I bought a 20-foot run of 4-inch flex hose, mainly because, similar to several other things, I knew I was getting ready to move. I didn't want to spend a ton of money and a ton of time organizing and setting up the shop with hard piping, only to have to take it right back down. So the flex hose enables me to drag it to wherever I need to, and this is on wheels as well if I need to get across the entire shop. But this makes it to where I don't really have to do hardly anything as far as blast gates and all that. I just take the flex hose to wherever I need it, cut it on, and we're good to go. The HEPA filter on this is amazing, and also it has these little doors right here that have these little pleated like egg crate filters to protect the actual HEPA filter, and they do a great job not only at keeping everything clean, but also at the noise reduction. It is, I mean, it's still loud-ish, but I would say it's almost half of what my rigid shop vac is as far as decibel sound. So really love that. And as I referenced earlier, my 240 volt circuits are right back here. So you'll see the black cable on the bottom that goes to my dust collector. The red one goes all the way across the ceiling and actually drops down to my bandsaw right over there. In this corner over here, I have my rigid jointer. This is the 6-inch floor standing model. This is another recent upgrade that I haven't gotten to use a ton, but I wanted to make sure and get it before the move because it was on sale. And I also have it on the Bora 1100 universal tool mobile base. Love that. It was really easy to put together. It took me like 30 minutes. So yeah, love that. I can pull it out whenever I need it. When I don't, it puts it right back, and it's got the leveling feet on it too, so it keeps it super stable. Behind that, I've got all my lawn equipment. This is really the only corner that has tools that are not related to woodworking. Wrapping around to the final wall of the shop, we have my workbench, another sentimental piece. This was actually built by my dad as well, whenever he was working on cars. And he actually built this up in New York and drove it all the way down to Texas before I was even born. And like I said, whenever he stopped working on cars, he gave me that and the Snap-on toolbox. So this is something I plan to hang on to and use as much as possible, and I love it. I put an additional light up here just to kind of give me some more fine-tuned lighting if I'm working on something right here, especially design work. I've got a big dry erase board that I made, and I use that for progress, for to-do lists, for shop projects that I've got coming up, for different tasks, for client builds, all that kind of stuff that I want to put up there. Up top, I've got some shop rags. I've got a couple other miscellaneous items, and then underneath is kind of where this baby shines. I've got all my spray paints, finishes, paste wax, stains, boiled linseed oil, mineral oil, CA glue, wood glue, all my big supplies down there. And this thing holds an amazing amount of weight. So this is the only tool, or the only piece of furniture currently in my shop that is not on wheels. However, I've got some right here, and they're the ones that mount to the side that you can actually pick up and put down. So as soon as I start breaking down the shop and I get this off this ledge, I will make sure to put wheels on that, and then everything in here will be mobile. So super pumped about that. Moving right along, I got my Bessie clamp storage. These are my big parallel clamps. These ones here are 50 inch. These ones here are 24 inch. I use these all the time. Doesn't matter if it's cabinetry, doesn't matter if it's cutting boards, doesn't matter if it's doors, anything. I use that all the time. I absolutely love them. They're amazing. 55-inch shop TV. I use this pretty rarely, but when I do, it's typically during football season. So I'll throw the game up there while I'm working on stuff. And yeah, I don't use it a ton, but it is nice to have, and it was an extra TV that we had, so figured I'd throw it up. I've got a trash bucket here, just for whether it's offcuts or when I get a new tool out to the trash away, just nice to have that in here. Dolly and the Rockwell Super Jaws jaw horse. I love this thing, and I don't use it as often as I should, but it is essentially similar to a vise, but number one, it's mobile, and number two, it has a lot of capacity. This has actually up to a 48-inch capacity, so I love that thing. Next is our upright freezer. We use this for mainly food and stuff like that inside. And then right above it is my oil bath. I use that for all my smaller cutting boards, all the ones that I can dunk in there. It has a 24-inch by 16-inch capacity, but what I can actually dip inside and submerge to the very bottom, because it kind of is tapered, is probably around 21, 22 inches by about 14, 15 inches, somewhere in there. And unless I'm doing the big end grain butcher blocks, pretty much all of them fit in there. So I love having that. That comes from this mineral oil here. I dumped about 6 gallons of this stuff in there, and it works great. And it's been sitting there for a good long while now. Really, the last couple of things to show you. Number one is the Laguna Supermax air filtration unit. I love this thing. I got this from a buddy of mine that upgraded his unit, and so I got it for a great deal. And yeah, I love this thing. It's super easy to use. It puts off a ton of air, and it really does a great job of keeping the air out of my lungs. I also love that it's all metal, because I put the remote with a magnet on it, stick that up there. I've got these hooks for random things, whether it be keys or small tools that I'm using, so I love having those. These are a lot of my, my GoPro mounts that are magnetic, and so I'll use that for different shots and things like that. I've got my dust collector remote on one of the hooks here, and so that keeps it safe and out of the way. And yeah, it's a great system. And last but definitely not least, these are two of the things that I wish I would have had in here a lot sooner, but unfortunately we just wasn't quite ready for it. However, I'm super glad I have them, and I'm really going to be pumped to have them in the new shop. Number one of which being lighting. I ran off of just this bulb for probably the first 8 months, and it drove me insane. I'm sure it probably killed my eyes, gave me massive headaches, and it was really hard to get things perfectly square. It was hard to get finish on something even, and it really, really sucked. So I got the same one that I have on my workbench over there. I got 4 more and scattered them throughout. I'm definitely gonna grab a few more when I move into the new shop and better organize them. But currently, I absolutely love it. And I have them all to a surge protector that I've mounted to the ceiling. And so all I do is hit the little red switch with a scrap piece of wood, cut all the lights on, cut them all off. So I love that. The second thing is this baby right here. This is my 240 volt wiring. Again, the boxes are over there. I've got one cord going to the dust collector and the other one coming over here. And this one is all hung up so that when I take my bandsaw, wheel it over here, plug it in, and it hangs, and then I can use it, and when I'm not, I can push the bandsaw out to the side, and I hang the squirt up here, and it doesn't get in my way. And I'm just barely short enough to not even catch it. So, love that feature. All right, guys. Well, that's gonna do it. This is my workshop. This is my garage. And yeah, it's been a great workhorse for me. And I've been in this house about 3 years. I've only been woodworking about 1.5 years of that. And yeah, it's been a phenomenal craft for me. It's been a great way to kind of, you know, blow off some steam, a little bit of therapy, a really, really fun hobby for me. It's given me a great sense of accomplishment, a great sense of community. And I've met so many of you guys that have been really great influences. I've had a handful of makers over here that we've either just had a couple beers and hung out, or we've built things together, or, you know, we've exchanged tools and scrap wood and all kinds of stuff, and it's been great. So I absolutely love it. Ton of memories here. Kind of sucks to see it go, but it's going to be definitely for better things. I have grown so much here, and I cannot wait to see what kind of growth happens at the new shop. So thank you guys all for sticking around. I am really, really pumped to have you by my side and to learn and get inspired from you guys. I hope that there's a little bit that you guys are able to take from this video. And if not, then I hope you were entertained, and I hope you got to see a little bit of the inside workings of Texan Woodworks and how exactly I put things together. So thank you guys so much. If you like what I do, if you like the things that I put out, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up or a comment on what you think, maybe some inspiration that you got, or maybe some things you think I could do better as far as organization, overall tool setup, whatever. So I'd love to hear your feedback. I've worked really, really hard on getting this shop set up the way that I want it. So if you guys have any feedback that would help me hopefully skip a few mistakes, I would love it. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one.